Hey everybody out there, it's Z with Six Pack Productions, and now that we're finally on a Friday where I don't have anything to do tomorrow morning, I can live up to the name of the channel. This is going to be good. So I'm going to do a little review of what I'm drinking here tonight, and then just wax philosophical a little bit and kind of let the alcohol go through. This isn't going to be like a drunk video or anything. This is the only one I'm going to have before making my way out, so don't get too excited about it. What we got here is, since it's mirrored, probably having a little trickiness reading it, this is a Hopsecutioner IPA. It is by the Terrapin Brewing Company. It's based out of Georgia, Athens to be precise, and I've had it once before, but it was several weeks ago. And I wasn't really in a position to fully appreciate what was going on. So this will be a more sober take on the matter. So let's dive in. Well, that's good stuff. So right off the bat, there's a little bit of bitterness to it, but very mild. When you first start to sip it, it is strong. So a heads up for anybody who might want to go ahead and give this a try. It's actually 7.3% alcohol by volume. So it's one of the higher ones you can find just at a normal distributor, at least as far as I can tell, without having to go to a microbrewery or some other place that's really going to try and challenge you with one or two items that they have on tap. Now, there's some heat from the hops, but it's nothing overwhelming. I've had some, this is an IPA, I've had some of those where they go so heavy on the hops that it ends up being, spicy, basically, to the point where there's no flavor to it, but you'd think someone would have thrown in a dash of pepper or something to get that kind of generation of a heat sensation. But this has a decent amount of malt to it as well that kind of balances that out. So overall, I'd say balanced. Flavor-wise, probably the best thing that I can comment on it. It's definitely something that I would get regularly. Hold on, I'm going to double check that claim. Oh yeah, this is definitely something that I would get regularly. And in this case, it's kind of tough to tell. It's not just a depth perception matter with the camera. I was actually able to find a 4-pack of 16-ounce cans at my closest beer store, so by the time I have this finished, we'll probably be in pretty good shape. Now, that's going to be fun. I'm going to be sipping that throughout the rest of the video here. When it comes to my relationship with alcohol, it has had ups and downs, as most people have. Nothing too crazy. My drinking has never sent me, I've never had alcohol poisoning or anything like that. I'm not really one to get into fights. It's just sort of never been my personality. I've generally been better at kind of resolving things before they escalate too far, even when intoxicated, which is a skill that can definitely come in handy sometimes. But, at this point, I've kind of reached the stage where I'm done with the whole, I'm going to get real fucked up tonight. Maybe I'll black out. Who knows what the hell's going on? And I'd much rather have, 3 or 4 drinks that I can really sit back and enjoy than 10 that's going to put me under a table. It's kind of my perspective now. Pardon. Whew. Okay, going for 3-4 gulps on that's actually a bit more than I was ready for mentally. It does feel sometimes like it still gets a bad rap, drinking in general. I don't know why, but it does seem like our culture here in the U.S. Has had this weird Puritan shift that is overlapping a supposed total freedom perspective. And I'm particularly talking about the regressive left, the far left, and feminism, and this idea that, well, anyone should be able to do whatever they want, and anyone who tells you that it's wrong or it's a bad idea, oh, they're just shaming you, they're just jealous, they're just sexist, you do whatever you want, you need to be empowered, and that means you do everything you want to do, which is not really what empowering, that's not empowerment. That's just lack of discipline. Empowerment means being able to, I'd say, look into anything, consider everything, don't let fear cloud your decision making, but if you're making an irrational choice or a dangerous choice, it's still irrational and or dangerous, whether someone stood behind you and said, "You go, girl." So, at the same time, it's just weird that, especially when it comes to like sexuality, the whole premise is now don't shame people for their kinks or what they want to do in the bedroom. Yet when it comes to drinking, especially when there are both men and women involved, some feminists just lose their fucking minds. It's very interesting to me that feminism in the new millennium, and maybe beforehand, but I wasn't really aware of it at that point. I was a kid. Feminism loves the idea of women having lots of sex all the time with everybody until a man enjoys it, and then it pisses them off, and then we end up with hashtag Me Too, which has sort of already become a meme. I'll drink to memes. Fuck it. And that's something that isn't really new, that overlap. If you look into your history of the United States, you might be surprised to find out that through the late 1700s and into the 1800s, women's rights movements were almost always involved in movements to abolish alcohol. Prohibition, when the U.S. Constitution was amended to ban the production, sale, and consumption of alcohol, that was primarily pushed by women. Throughout that period of history, one of the few ways that men would have any sort of recreation that wasn't really more so about bringing some sort of value to the household was to go to the local pub or tavern. If a man enjoyed, if he enjoyed woodworking or craftsmanship, he still was ultimately doing it in order to make something to be used by the family or to be sold for money to buy something else. If a man liked to hunt, it still was ultimately to put food on the table, to get animal hides for clothing or whatever would end up, whatever the purpose would be. Booze had no, I'll be the first one to say it, no practical purpose to it whatsoever. Yet somehow, nonetheless, almost every culture throughout the world, as soon as people figure out what sort of product, basically what sort of plant has to ferment in order to give them access to a mind-altering substance, it gets ingrained in their culture. This is alcohol in Europe. This is, and well, other parts of the world as well. But Europe, it seemed to have been a bit bigger there. It's mescaline and other plant-based hallucinogens in North and South America. It's the first person who came across a marijuana plant and threw it into a fire thinking they were just adding more kindling. Because I can't imagine any other way you'd find out what the fuck that was going to do. You know, there's something to be said of mankind's drive to occasionally have a mental break and take a dive into the drunk world as opposed to the sober world. Drunk, high, whatever your equivalent is, to just not have to think so hard, if only for an hour or two. And I'm really okay with that in general. You know, the videos that I've been making the past 2 weeks have never involved my consuming alcohol, nor have I ever been drinking before or after, let alone during. So my take has been for the longest amount of time that if you're able to pull that off without interfering with anyone else and without making your own life too much worse, hey, go for it. All right? I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I extend that generally to other mind-altering substances. I am completely for the removal of marijuana from its current status in the U.S. as a Schedule I drug that has, you know, according to that U.S. statute, no practical purposes whatsoever. I'm glad that that's starting to go by the wayside. As of the past month or so, I know that the bill's been moving through Congress to finally get rid of some of the tangential legislation that could adversely affect banks that work with marijuana-based businesses, which has sort of been the last hurdle. Once these companies get access to regular financing, once someone can walk into, you know, a bank like a Wells Fargo or Bank of America, some big institution, and say, pardon me, that beer's already doing some work. As soon as you can walk into a Wells Fargo and say, I want a small business loan to open a dispensary in my town, here's my plan, and the people in the bank don't panic, you're in phenomenal shape. And you can do a lot of good, I think, for a lot of people. Now, I think there'll be pushback. I think there will always be pushback. There are people who've spent their whole lives being told that these things are evil, that anyone who does them is at best damaged and at worst actually very, selfish and lazy and they don't want to do anything else. I mean, look, when you give people freedom of choice, they are always going to run the risk of choosing poorly. And you can't try to manipulate what they choose. I'll have another drink for that. It's very good. Just to get back to this particular product. So again, that's Hopsecutioner IPA by Terrapin as the brand name. I would definitely get this again. The 4-pack, which again, remember, were 16-ounce cans. So it was the equivalent, basically, of having a little over 5, normal size 12-ounce cans. And it was like $10, give or take. I admit I don't remember the exact total it came out to. But it wasn't something unreasonable. I've definitely spent more on beer that I've enjoyed less. So I could see this becoming a staple in my house. And to that end, I do hope that I can get into the habit of doing this, particularly on weekends when I have the opportunity. I'm definitely going to be going out tonight, kind of enjoying myself and letting loose. So, we'll see where that goes. But I would like to, kind of set up my own pregame by just showing, hey, here's what I'm having, here's what I'm trying out. Give us some recommendations, some ideas. And if anybody thinks that's a cool thought, please let me know. Wait, one more. Although I do think if I'm going to do this going forward, I'm going to need a microphone stand or something that's going to help this format better. Because it is a little tricky to have the mic in one hand, the beer in the other, and have to do any sort of interaction with my computer at the same time. But hey, I'm new at this, so if this is one of the bumps in the road, so be it. Just got to press onward. So everybody, I'm going to go ahead and get ready to sign off and prepare myself for my weekend. Everybody have a fun night. Be safe. Get laid. And as soon as you're done with that, hey, whoever you roll over and see in the morning, tell them to check out the video, like, share, and subscribe. I'm sure that'll go over perfectly well. This is Z signing off for Six Pack Productions, everybody. Take care. Peace out.